Welcome to this Jeremy Bamber and White House Farm podcast, season 4. My name's Emma Morris, and I'm joined today by my colleagues Yvonne Hartley and Philip Walker. Hi, Yvonne. Hi, Philip.
Hi, Emma.
So we're here today to talk about the recent complaint against Essex Police that was upheld by the IOPC. But I think we'd start, Philip, if you could just explain who the IOPC is for us.
Yeah, the IOPC, that stands for the Independent Office for Police Conduct. And they are a public body in England and Wales, which since January 2018 is responsible for overseeing the system for handling complaints against police forces in England and Wales. Most allegations of police conduct are investigated by police forces' own professional standards departments, but the IOPC that is there to deal with particularly serious allegations. For instance, in cases where somebody dies or sustains serious injuries following police contact. And there are a number of thresholds for mandatory referrals to the IOPC that police forces have to assess when a complaint is made to them.
Right.
And that's something that will come into play with Jeremy's complaint, as we'll explain a bit later.
Okay, that's interesting. So, Yvonne, what prompted the complaint to the IOPC? So what are the details of it in Jeremy's case?
Yeah, well, firstly, I need to point out that the complaint was against 2 of Essex police officers who were key in Jeremy's case. So one was the leading senior investigating officer, DCI Michael Ainsley. The second was DI Ronald Cook, who was scenes of crime officer. So what happened was, initially, during the judicial review of Jeremy's case against the Crown Prosecution Service for disclosure, it came to light that Ainsley and Cook had provided documentation to an author, Carol Ann Lee, and that documentation was specific files that were generated during the investigation. Now, from information that we received, these were files that we were actually asking the CPS for and had been refused disclosure.
Oh, wow.
The CPS took it upon themselves to investigate this because it was a little bit like, this is out of the norm. And they got DCR Jennings of Essex Police to investigate had Cook and Ainsley provided documentation to the author. So in 2020, DCR Jennings did his initial investigation, came back and said, no, they did nothing wrong. They didn't do anything out of the ordinary. The JR proceeded, and obviously it wasn't about that. It was about the CPS not disclosing, so the matter wasn't taken any further at that stage.
Yeah.
So once the judicial review was ended, we took the decision with Jeremy and Jeremy's legal team that this isn't right. They've got away with providing documentation to members of the public that we are asking for that we haven't seen. So we consulted with the legal team and they said, yes, we need to pursue this. But in addition, over the course of many years of looking through Jeremy's case files and everything, it came to light about acts that were committed by Ainsley and Cook as the senior investigating officer and the senior scenes of crime officer that impeded on the investigation. So there were a lot of different factors which weren't necessarily truthful and weren't necessarily normal in the process of investigating a case. So with a lot of examples of this. So would you like me to give you a few examples, Emma?
Yes, please.
So, for instance, in the case of Ainsley, so we've got the documentation he's providing to members of the public, but also additional complaints. Just to summarise, can't be specific on all of them, but his conduct in the case was, for instance, he lied about the foster care issue to the DPP. He said it wouldn't have ever been an option, but yet had statements of foster carers who had looked after Nicholas and Daniel.
So this is where Jeremy had said that when he left on the 6th of August that Sheila, June and Neville were discussing the possibility of the children going into foster care, and Ainsley reported that absolutely not, that would never have been discussed, foster care would never have been considered, this information has only come from Jeremy, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly. But he kept it from the DPP that he had statements from foster carers who had taken care of the children. There were other incidents about Ainsley telling the DPP that there's a photograph of a telephone on the shelf in the office. And then later on, it transpired that very same telephone, he was telling the DPP and the jury, Jeremy had hid it in a pile of magazines in the kitchen. There was changed witness statements that Ainsley was aware of. There were witness statements that were written after Ainsley had set out to the DPP what they contained. How did he know what they contained? Because he told them what to put in them. And they were, one of the major factors was a report by DCI Keneally, in which he did an investigation which concluded on the 6th of September 1985, in which he reviewed all the available evidence and concluded that Sheila was responsible. But yet this information was edited in later statements from Ainsley. There'd no report ever been disclosed. It was one of the documents we are seeking, and yet Ainsley tried to disguise that ever existed. And also another key factor was Neville's ability to ring Jeremy at 3:15 approximately in the morning before the call to the police. Ainsley said that couldn't have happened because Neville had been shot in the mouth. Well, nobody knows the order of the series of events, but yet Ainsley was adamant that because Neville had been shot in the mouth, he wouldn't have been able to speak, and therefore Jeremy was lying about the telephone call, and therefore there was no call to Essex Police, which we now know that Neville did phone Essex Police.
And clearly before he was shot.
Clearly before he was shot. Nobody knows the timeline, so, you know, they can't. But Ainsley was absolutely adamant that Neville could not have used the telephone. So there are other issues as well, but they are some of the key factors. Then moving on to Cook, who actually assured DCI Jennings of Essex Police that no way did he ever take anything home. Well, in an interview that he did, that was done by Chris Mersker, who you may remember was responsible for the RTV drama, he did an interview for HBO Max on October 2020, and very nicely, he was describing how he was depicting how like the typical English policeman, and he said he never expected for a minute that what Cook did was turn up in a pub in the middle of Essex, get documents and photographs out, showing them all over the pub to the Chris Mersker. And
Wow.
it's like, well, wait a minute, you told Jennings that you never took anything home, but there you are with photographs. This is an independent person who said this, so obviously that was included in our complaint.
Yeah.
But also acts during the investigation that Cook was complicit for is he lied about paint samples that were taken from under the mantel shelf at White House Farm. He lied about the dates they were taken and how many were taken. He lied about the downstairs shower room window catch. And we know that he took it off, put it on, took it off, put it on 3 times at least. It's documented before all of a sudden there's scratch marks on that window catch, there's scratch marks on that window frame that they then attribute in October 1985 to have been caused by Jeremy slipping the catch to get in that window. There was no damage on that window before, and Cook knew that he had repeatedly taken that catch on and off for no reason, and there's no explain why. It was just done. But also Cook was seizing exhibits that had already been seized. So oddly, we don't know the reason for that. And he also, his fingerprint evidence that he was given. So for instance, he said Jeremy's fingerprint matched a fingerprint on the rifle. Well, maybe so. But he said Jeremy's fingerprint was matched on the 8th of September 1985. Jeremy's fingerprints weren't even taken till the 24th of October 1985. So how we could match that in September, we don't know. So these are just a few of the key factors that were included in the police complaint. We thought we're not just going to go about the fact that we're disclosing documentation. We'll put in a few other things that we know for certain they were doing and that we can prove they were doing through detailed document analysis. So that's the basis of the complaint that was sent first to Essex Police.
Yeah, so they are really serious allegations. Philip, would you say that they meet the threshold of a complaint that would be referred to the IOPC?
Yes,
or that
they
should
did.
be referred?
Yes, absolutely. And in fact, that's one of the first things the IOPC said in their decision, that this should have immediately been referred to them because of the serious nature of the allegations. But in the event, Essex Police just took it in-house, sent DCI Jennings round to have a cup of tea and a chat with Cook and Ainsley, said, did you do anything wrong? And they said, of course not. And he said, oh, well, that's fine then. So that was how they tried to bury it initially. So obviously, having had that response from Essex Police, we had no alternative but to turn to the IOPC for a proper investigation. And the decision in our favour, which eventually emerged.
Right.
But it was a long drawn out process, Emma. I mean, there is a procedure that you have to follow. You can't just go straight to the IOPC. Essex Police should have, with this, as Philip said, with the serious nature of the complaints, they should have referred it to them to investigate, but they didn't. Instead, it was over 2 years of Essex Police investigating themselves. Well, obviously, they're going to come back with a we did nothing wrong.
Yeah.
And so letter after letter after letter was sent to Essex Police about these complaints, and they'd come back with no further action required. This has been dealt with in a court of law. Well, it hadn't been dealt with in a court of law. It had been mentioned at the JR, the initial disclosure issues, but nothing about the actions of these two particular officers. But it was as though they'd scrubbed that from everything. So from there, when we're not happy with Essex Police, then we have to go to the Police Standards Department, which is still Essex Police.
Right.
Procedure you have to go through. So in 2021, so this is like a year later, we were finally in the position we could go to the police standards. We said, you know, you need to, this is not a cursory, no further action on everything. We need these complaints investigated properly. Anyway, they came back and they said no further action in just very brief paragraphs.
Well, what did they give any reasons why it was no further action? I mean, they just ignored the allegations?
They ignored the allegations. They just said there was no further action, that nobody had done anything wrong and there was no further action. But their decision was not proportionate to the complaints that we had made. It was like, well, they haven't even explained, why is there no further action on this? Explain the fingerprint issue to us. Why are these anomalies? If there's no further action, have you actually looked at this?
Yeah.
No, they haven't. So then we also had to involve the Police and Fire Commissioner of Essex, because Essex Police just seem to ignore us. They have a mandatory time where they're supposed to reply within 130 days, and there was nothing forthcoming. The Fire and Chief Commissioner, he then said they've got 28 days to get back to you about it. He said there was like further follow-ups needed to be done. It was only 12 months after he said that they had 28 days did they eventually get back to us, Essex Police, with a more detailed summary of what they were supposed to have done on each of the issues, except on each and every instance it was a copied and pasted answer that said, this has been dealt with in court. No further action, this has been dealt with in court. Well, nothing was dealt with in court. None of these complaints had ever been before a court.
No respect for the due process at all of the procedure, is there? I mean, they're given 28 days and they just completely ignore that and take a year to come back.
Yeah, exactly.
But it's not just the extended timescale, as the IOPC pointed out. This is not just a technical matter, the way that Essex Police dealt with the complaints initially. It was actually illegal what they did, because there is a statutory requirement for an automatic referral with this level of seriousness of these complaints. So once again, Essex Police were acting outside the law in the same way they have done in ignoring the 2 court orders demanding that they disclose all the case material.
I must just add, Emma, that for anybody listening who doesn't know the amount of the extent of how we make our submissions with the legal team and everything, we point out what the issue is. Everything is meticulously referenced to documents. There is no speculation. We're not guessing. It's all there in black and white. It's just been a case of piecing it together because nothing made sense. Even the fingerprint issue didn't make sense. So you piece it together from the documentation, highly reference it, and all that documentation is sent. So it's not like we're pulling a thread and hoping it'll go somewhere.
Yeah.
It's got a beginning, a middle, and an end, all documented throughout. And yet Essex Police were like, but they've done nothing wrong. It's really. And then at the same time, we did send the full extent of the police complaint, because they are large. We did against just those 2 officers, and we did send those in addition to the CCRC. So they're fully aware they've got that police complaint as well, plus all the letters that Essex Police sent us to try and cover their tracks, and there's no further action letters and the IOPC decision. So that is with the CCRC. This will enable the CCRC to be able to realise that not everything Essex Police are telling you is true. Essex Police tell lies. Essex Police try and cover their own backs. So that hopefully with the chain of evidence that we sent them with the police, with the Essex Police, the Chief Constable, the Police Standards Department, and the IOPC, chain of evidence regarding just these 2 police officers and the inaction of Essex Police in trying to resolve this, it will enable the CCRC to think, wait a minute, we can't believe what Essex Police tell us, because this is
the underhand way that they actually dealt with the complaint.
Exactly. And like Philip said, it was illegal. They should have referred it, and they didn't.
But as you can imagine, we were obviously all amazed to hear Chris Mersker's story about Cook showing him scenes of crime photos in the middle of a busy pub in Essex. But that had quite serious consequences, as well as being shocking in its own right, in that he wrote the screenplay for the ITV drama White House Farm. So that material was some of the basis on which he built the story that was shown on national TV. So this wasn't just an ethereal, conversation between 2 people. This had a major effect on public perceptions of the case.
And I'm sure he showed him what he wanted him to see as well, rather than, transparent open book.
Yes, exactly. And the same thing has happened with Carol-Ann Lee, who, as you all will know, wrote what she claimed to be the definitive story of the White House Farm murders in her book published in 2015. And we had the extraordinary situation where she posted on social media a picture of some of the files that she'd been given through Cook and Ainsley, which we had never seen. And she was, as far as the case is concerned, although she's obviously interested in it, she is just a member of the public.
So just to clarify then, so a member of the public was handed over police files on the case that the defence have been denied access to.
Yes, that's right. And we recognised, Yvonne recognised through some of the reference numbers on the front of those files, that this was material that we had never seen.
And she must have known she'd done, that there was something dodgy about it, because she took that post down very quickly, didn't she? Not quick enough for you, Yvonne, though, who screenshotted it very quickly before she took it down. But she posted it, then obviously must have thought better of it very quickly, because it was gone.
Yeah, but it's like the the Chris Mercer interview with HBO Max, he would have not anticipated that he was lied to, or he was then became a part of this chain of deceit by Essex Police, because Cook was adamant that he lied when he was interviewed by DCR Jennings. He said, I didn't take any documentation or any exhibits home. Well, he obviously did, because he turned up in the pub and we've got an independent person not talking to us or our legal team, talking to promote his drama. Is no reason to lie.
No.
And that's not the first occasion we know of Cook showing, scenes of crime material to other people unconnected with either the police or the case, because somebody approached us many years ago saying they'd been shown a video by him which comprised a lot of the scenes of crime photos, just as almost an evening's entertainment, which, when you think about it, is incredibly shocking that, pictures of a crime scene where the whole of Jeremy's family had died were just being shown as, almost like the weekly video in the Cook household. It was extraordinary.
Awful, isn't it? Well, you say many years ago, Philip, but we were made aware really recently this year that he was also showing other ex-Essex police officers who were unconnected to the case material, crime scene photos and material from the case to other people. So who knows how many people he was showing it around to.
Yeah. Well, and also the other thing we know is that Ainsley commissioned his own independent report to try and bolster some of his claims on some of the evidence in the case. And I know Yvonne knows more of those details than me.
Yeah. What it is, people may remember that a number of years ago, it was in the media about the blood on Sheila's foot.
Yeah.
And instantly it was in the media. Ainsley commissioned an ex-police officer called Ling, who was actually involved in the investigation on the peripheral in 1985. He himself had to compile a report on behalf of Ainsley, in which he said that the photographs we were using were fake. Now, these photographs had been given to us by the CCRC, so they're not fake because they got them from Essex Police. So he commissioned this Ling to do the report and immediately sent it to the CCRC. I believe that he thought we were going to put a submission in regarding the blood on Sheila's foot, but we didn't at that time. But we have made the CCRC aware that Ainsley was trying to impact on Jeremy's submission, even though we hadn't made one at the time. He was trying to still have an influence over the case. Why would he commission an forensic report? Why would he?
With that, is that because we know the photos came from the CCRC, so they weren't fake.
Exactly.
So that's fraud, isn't it? I mean, what is that, perverting the course of justice?
Exactly, but as
because
well,
the person that's said these photos are fake is either not very good at his job or is lying.
But within that report, Ainsley was also saying that the photographs that they had were different. What photographs?
Show us then.
Just show us the photographs.
Mm.
So it all got sent to the Criminal Cases Review Commission. So it's for them to delve and to dig and to try and get everything. But it's sort of mission impossible now, because both Ainsley and Cook are now deceased.
Mm. So, Yvonne, can you tell me then exactly what did the IOPC decide and rule?
Yeah, well, I'll just briefly say that on the night, it was the 9th of May 2023 that we received notification from them about the decision. Now, they made it very clear that their role was to decide whether our complaint against Essex Police handling of our complaints against police officers was handled correctly, and that the outcome was reasonable and proportionate. Part of their ruling was to determine if the complainant handler engaged with us to fully understand and address the complaint, that they conducted adequate inquiries and considered relevant information. that the conclusion was logical, appropriate, and evidence-based. Reasonable actions were taken to address the complaint, and any potential for learning was identified as part of the process. So the IOPC went on to list the 29 complaints that we'd made against police officers to Essex Police. And they ruled that our complaint against Essex Police was upheld on the basis that they didn't do the necessary. So they should have referred, the Essex Police should have referred our complaints against the police officers immediately to the IOPC for them to make a decision, but didn't. So they basically said that there was nothing that they could do as regards to complaints, but there was something they could do regarding Essex Police not conducting their review properly, because their remit is only narrow and deals with the way the complaint was handled.
So does that ultimately mean then that Essex Police just brushed the complaint under the carpet, or attempted to just brush the complaint under the carpet?
Yeah, they did. I mean, I don't know if you remember, but right at the beginning, Essex Police told the legal team that they were abusing process in making a complaint to them in the first place, which was obviously used as a deterrent action of us going ahead with these complaints. But we knew that that wasn't correct, and so we pursued it. But the IOPC ruled that the complaint, as I say, should have been passed immediately to them from the outset, and therefore Essex Police have to learn this in the future, which doesn't necessarily help us, but at least they've had their hands slapped. And
so they didn't actually investigate the points of the complaint. They just said that Essex Police themselves didn't do what they should have done.
That's right. They did actually look at all the evidence and the complaints that we made, because that was part of the package that we sent them. But they said that they couldn't make a decision against deceased officers who they couldn't investigate it to the full extent, and that they recommended another process, which was the CCRC, which is already underway. And that's what it said in their letter. So this police complaint has been sent from the outset to the CCRC with all the communication backwards and forwards and the ruling of the IOPC.
Right. Okay. So I guess what that really means in reality then is there's no point in them doing anything further when the officers subject to the complaint are deceased and can't face any kind of disciplinary action.
Well, the IOPC's job was to investigate Essex Police's conduct. I think if this issue would have been referred to the IOPC in the first instance by Essex Police, they would have investigated the issues. But as it stood, the complaint we made was against Essex Police's conduct in reviewing the complaints that we've made. So we did win that, and this IOPC are fully aware that the complaint is with the Criminal Cases Review Commission. So hopefully all correspondence has been sent to them and the decision. And I hope that's going to make them realise that Essex Police just cannot be trusted. They bend the rules, they break the rules to protect their own. And it's about time that that stopped.
And it's not, it's not like it was a trivial complaint. It was a complaint of a very serious nature that they just...
Very serious, because it impacted on Jeremy's conviction. A lot of the complaints made against these two particular officers were things that bent the truth, it manipulated evidence, they fabricated evidence. All the evidence was there for Essex Police and the IOPC to see. So we included everything, all the major key aspects of these two police officers' conduct. And it was downright corrupt and impacted on the conviction. Had they not been guilty of the actions that they committed, it's highly likely Jeremy wouldn't have even got to trial.
And also, as Yvonne's pointed out, in practical terms, the IOPC couldn't do anything against Cook and Ainsley, as that they are now deceased. But what they did say was there is an opportunity for what they called organisational learning for Essex Police in how they deal with these situations in the future. Basically, that means a slap on the wrist and being told, don't do it again. But beyond that, they did confirm, as we said earlier, that Essex Police had acted illegally in this situation. They had a statutory obligation to refer a complaint of this seriousness directly to the IOPC in the first instance, and they didn't do that. And that just adds to the pattern of illegal behaviour from Essex Police, as we saw in the case of the 2 court orders they've ignored for disclosure up to the present day. So it just adds fuel to what we're saying, that Essex Police have acted improperly all the way down the line, and now they've been called out on that by an official government body.
Yeah, so we're not just talking about historic corruption from the 1980s. It's a continuation of that corruption.
Yes, exactly. That pattern is continuing even now, all this time, nearly 4 decades after the case.
So how did Essex Police respond to the complaint? What did they say?
They haven't responded to our legal team at all.
They've just ignored it.
Yeah, they've just brushed it off as, yet another thing that, another brickbat that's coming towards them from this case. And they seem to be totally immune to any criticism or any other observations that don't feed into their particular narrative. When
the Police and Fire Commissioner had hold of the case, before it went to the IOPC, he actually instructed Essex Police to apologise to Jeremy and the legal team for their lack of investigation into these issues. And of course, no apology was forthcoming.
Just amazing, isn't it? They just ignore everyone. They're completely above the law.
Absolutely.
Well, let's hope it all comes crashing down around their ears and they'll be explaining themselves, as and when Jeremy is exonerated, because I'm sure there's going to be lots of eyes on them at that stage. Definitely. They'll have to justify their behaviour, won't they?
They will.
So in terms of the ruling itself, is that public? Can people see that?
Well, usually they publish their rulings anonymously, i.e. by covering up who the complainant was, on their website about a month after they've decided on an individual case. But as far as we're aware, they haven't actually done that in Jeremy's case. And obviously we're a number of months down the line now. So it appears that for whatever reason, that they don't wish this to be made public.
If there were anything we can do to make that public.
Yes, Emma, we've sought authorisation from Jeremy, and he's happy that anybody can see this ruling. And so therefore it is now, to go in conjunction with this podcast, it's now available on the website for all to see.
Fabulous. So that's www.jeremy-bamber.co.uk.
That's right.
Brilliant. Okay, well, thank you so much for joining me, Yvonne and Philip. That was really informative. And I will see you again soon.
You will. Take care, Emma. Thank you.
Thanks, Emma.
Bye.
Bye.
If you want to lend your support to Jeremy Bamber, you can write to him in the UK using the number A5352AC, HM Wakefield, 5 Love Lane, Wakefield, WF2 9AG, or see our website for details at www.jeremy-bamber.co.uk.